Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday service. We will begin with the ringing of the kancho, followed by chanting of Jusege.
出達前修門高僧上満足いよろ実法日学習十期健康音不減一種解放像公正功読法上大集中説法知識不要一切分分則種特法万年出場満国威三害を名物無下地中達未不詳蘭学エリ投資最小尊志願や国家内戦を感動北書店に東内妙家ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブアニシクドク平等聖祭道本菩提心往生安楽ナマンダースナマンダースナマンダースナマンダースナマンダースナマンダースナマンダースナマンダース
We will now have the reading of Three Treasures and Sankyemon.
Namanda, namanda, nam. Please join me with hands together for the reading of the three treasures. Hard is it to receive a human form. Now we have received it. Difficult is it to hear the Buddha Dharma. Now we hear it. If we do not receive awakening in this life, in what life shall we do so? Let us reverently take refuge together in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. Together with all beings, may we attain the great way of enlightenment, awakening to the supreme intent of the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. Together with all beings, may we enter the storehouse of Dharma, acquiring wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. Together with all beings, may we become united at the great assembly, being free of all bondage. Hard is it to encounter the supreme, profound, and wondrous Dharma, even in 100,000 million kalpa. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true intent of the Tathagata. Sankyemon. Ninjin ukegatashi, imasude ni uku. Buppo kikigatashi, imasude ni kiku. Konomi konjo ni mukatte dosazun wa, sarani izure no shou ni mukatte ka konomi o dosen. Daishu moro tomo ni shishin ni sanbo ni kieshi tate matsuru beshi. Mizu kara butsu ni kieshi tate matsuru. Masa ni negawaku wa shujo to tomo ni daido o taige shite mujoi o okosan. Mizu kara ho ni kieshi tate matsuru. Masa ni negawaku wa shujo to tomo ni fukaku kyouzo ni irite chie umi no gotoku naran. Mizu kara so ni kieshi tate matsuru. Masa ni negawaku wa shujo to tomo ni daishu o tori shite issai mugen naran. Mujo jinjin mimyo no ho wa hyakusen mango ni mo ayo koto katashi. Ware ima kenmon shi juji suru koto etari. Negawaku wa nyorai no shinjitsu gi o geshi tate matsuran. Namandab, 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 namandab.
So we will now have a Dharma message delivered by Reverend Umezu.
Good morning. Please join me with hands together, Gassho, as I read words written by Venerable Shinran. The lay people and monks who live in this era at the end of the Dharma, as well as the eminent teachers of recent times, are sinking in the doctrine that Amida's Pure Land is only in our minds, and disparage the realization of the truth of the Pure Land. Lost in one's own heart and mind of meditative and scattered practices, they are ignorant of Amida Buddha's true wisdom that is indestructible. Namandauts, 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 namandauts. Well, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Good, great. Thank you so much for coming today to listen to the Buddha Dharma with us. And If anybody is joining for the first time, thank you so much for joining us today. The passage that I've just read can be found in Venerable Shinran's main textual work that is called Kyogyo Shinsho. And it is in the preface of a chapter called the Volume on True and Real Shin. In this preface, Venerable Shinran is trying to clarify for other monks and teachers of his time that the answer of how to escape this world of delusion and suffering is not through relying on self-power practices of the sagely path that encourage meditation and the teaching that Amida Buddha's Pure Land is only in our mind, but rather monks and lay people should realize the practice of the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha, which comes to us from the Pure Land, which is the realm of truth. Amida Buddha's wisdom that is compassionately being shared with us is indestructible, especially compared to the wisdom that we as ordinary beings can cultivate or conceive of in our own minds. So as many of you know, Buddhism is not native to this country, right? Depending on the tradition, Buddhism has come to this country from various Asian countries. But no matter where they came from to come to this country, all of the Buddhist traditions have the roots in ancient northern India, which is present-day Nepal. And of course, the teacher that we all share is Shakyamuni Buddha. The tradition that we practice here at the West Los Angeles Buddhist Temple is from Japan, and it's called Jodo Shinshu. Recently, Jodo Shinshu has come to be called Shin Buddhism in English. I'm sure you've all heard the term Shin Buddhism. So I have to admit that I don't really like this name or title, Shin Buddhism. And the reason that I don't like it is because the word Jodo is not included in the name. So Jodo in Japanese means pure land. So without Jodo, without Pure Land in the name, our school in English just means true Buddhism. Shin means true, so it just means true Buddhism. So while it is true that this school is really Buddhism, it's not false, it's not a lie. What is also equally true in our tradition of Buddhism is Amida Buddha and Amida Buddha's Pure Land. This is one of the main unique features of Venerable Shinran's teaching. And so I think it is important that we do not ignore it, and that Pure Land, this word Pure Land, is shared in our school's name as we endeavor to share this teaching with others. I think it might be the case that many people might understand Amida Buddha's Pure Land to be simply a so-called place that we go to when we die. However, based on how I understand Venerable Shinran's teachings, I don't think this is the whole story. I think this is only part of, or one of the aspects of what Pure Land is. The other part is that Pure Land is we use the word place, right? From which Amida Buddha is, and where Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion comes from, as it is shared with us. And we call this place pure because it is a realm that is outside of us, that does not have any of the impurities of the three poisons, right? The three poisons of selfish desires or greed, right? Selfish dislikes, which lead to hate, and delusion. It is pure of those things. And those three poisons are deeply rooted in our unenlightened hearts and minds. This, what we call Pure Land, is also known as the land of joy and bliss. And this is because it is in contrast to our world that is full of anxiety and suffering. So what we are being taught is that Amida's world is a true pure, and real realm that is in contrast to our world full of delusion, untruth, and three poisons. And so Venerable Shinran's statement that I just read was clarifying that Amida Buddha and Pure Land are not just creations in our mind, because our mind is muddled with the three poisons. But Amida Buddha and the Pure Land are true and real wisdom and compassion, which is outside of us, free, completely free of these three poisons. And this true and real wisdom and compassion is indestructible compared to my flippant and fickle heart and mind that can change on a whim. Because Amida Buddha and the Pure Land are free of the three poisons and free of any type of anxiety or suffering, Venerable Shinran urges us to rely on these virtues and to make Buddha's teaching and practice, which is Namo Amida Butsu, central and fundamental to our lives. I think if we do this, we will naturally wish to become closer to the source of these virtues that give us guidance and comfort in our lives. We will naturally wish that we could become more like the Buddha and wish to eventually become Buddha ourselves. This is what I think it means to aspire to go to the Pure Land. I would like to share a personal story as an example of what I mean by this. So, as you may know, my weekday job is that of a story illustrator for film and television. And when I was growing up, I didn't know this was a profession, so I didn't necessarily set out to do this. But I just knew I loved drawing. I knew I loved art. And for as long as I can remember, I've always loved to draw. At the same time, my other love has been watching TV, watching cartoons, watching movies. These were my two joys growing up. But as I said, my parents and family, just treated it as a hobby that I should probably stop doing and go outside and get fresh air, but I didn't want to. But I didn't know this was a job. But whenever I was drawing, I would always draw and watch TV at the same time. And I would watch, whenever I did this, I felt a joy and a comfort that to this day I cannot put into words. But, as I got older, I loved TV and movies so much and cartoons that I became curious about how they were made. How did they make these special effects of live action movies? How did animation make these two-dimensional pictures come alive, right? And finally, when I was in middle school, it happened to be that more books started to be made about how movies were made, how cartoons were made. And so I was able to, read magazine articles or go to the library, check out books. And for the first time, I was able to encounter and learn about what these professionals did, behind the scenes. How were these things done? And on top of that, I learned that this is a real job that somebody could have, right? There was a job where somebody could draw and watch TV and movies all day. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then so I wanted to do something like this. And that became my aspiration, to have a job where I can watch TV and movies all day and not be yelled at. So where my passion lied was in drawing. So I gravitated toward the field of animation first. I researched and studied what the professionals did to get where they were. What kind of things did they practice drawing? Where did they go to school, etc. And, of course, I was still in middle school, high school time. But, I tried to do what I could to mimic what they were doing so that I can practice to get to where they were, to reach the same goal that they did. So although my goal was to become a traditional animator, but you all know traditional animation, like they draw like pictures one by one, it's like a flip book. But when I was in high school, two things happened. First was that the movie Toy Story came out. Do you all remember the movie Toy Story? Yeah. It was the first animated movie fully rendered by computer, like a full-length movie. And shortly after this movie came out, Disney announced that it was going to focus more on making these computer animated movies and slowly cut out traditional animation department. So I realized there might not even be a job for me to pursue anymore. Second was, in spite of hearing this, I still wanted to learn animation. So my mother found me some animation classes for high schoolers. So she signed me up for that as a summer school. And when I took the class, I realized this was too hard for me. I couldn't do it. It required a lot of patience, and I didn't have the patience. Not only that, I was told that if you want to go into this field, you have to draw someone else's character, right? Like if you want to draw Mickey, it has to look like Mickey. I can't just do my own version of Mickey, right? So I would have to learn how to draw in a specific style. And I was told by some people at that time that my style was not good enough. I couldn't copy people well enough. So I became lost. For these reasons, among others, I ended up not going to art school for college, but went to a general university and majored in art. Just general art, unsure and unsettled of where I was going in life. However, while I was in this general art program, one of my teachers introduced me to story illustration for live action film and television. And again, it just so happened at this time that more, books and DVDs were coming out at that time, and they had those special features. I don't know if you remember those, but when you bought a DVD, you could see behind-the-scenes interviews and behind-the-scenes artwork, and that was new, right? So I was able to actually look into this profession of live action, story illustration for live action. And as I looked into this profession, I learned that this career would also allow me to watch TV and movies all day and draw all day. But what I really loved was that this profession also welcomed me to draw as I naturally do. I wouldn't have to change my drawing style. And it didn't require nearly as many drawings, so I didn't have to have the patience and the vigor that I would have had to have in animation. So as I looked into this career option more, I became inspired to pursue this path, and it's where I have ended up today. So I share this story to emphasize some points. First is the idea of how we are inspired to do something, right? I was only inspired to go into these careers after encountering, really learning what it was that the fruits of the activity of those that came before me. So because these people wrote books, because there was, material that came to me that I was able to access, then I could see something that could inspire me, right? So it's the other artists' work, their hard work of making movies and film and television that brought me joy and comfort. And I received the benefits from their hard work. And this made me want to know, right, more about what they did behind the scenes. And so, in other words, the behind the scenes work is what inspired me to become part of, quote, Hollywood. Right? And I think that our Buddhist paths are similar to this. When we realize that we find a special type of joy and comfort in Buddha's words, Buddha's teachings, it naturally makes us want to, be around it more or learn about it more. And when we do this, then we can come to learn about the quote-unquote behind the scenes of Amida Buddha. And the behind the scenes of Amida Buddha is to hear why and how Buddha came to be. Why and how Buddha's vow, the fundamental vow, Hongan, 18th vow, and Namo Amida Butsu came to be. The behind the scenes of the vow and Namo Amida Butsu is that it was established by Dharmakara Bodhisattva with the wish, the deep wish and intent to emancipate each and every one of us from this world of delusion. And in order to do this, Dharmakara Bodhisattva established a Buddha world that is opposite of ours, right? We don't want to go to one place that's suffering to another place that's suffering. We want to go to somewhere better, right? In order to do this, right, Dharmakara established a world that is without suffering, that is completely free of the three poisons. It's completely free of any self-centeredness, any judgments of likes and dislikes. It doesn't have any kind of delusion about the reality of the world, of nature. It only is truth and reality, wisdom and empathy. This is the land of joy and bliss, or what we call Pure Land. This vow and the land were established just for us, so that we can have a place of refuge that we can aspire to go to, that is away from this world of suffering. And at the same time, it is from this Buddha land that Amida Buddha shares the virtues of Dharma wisdom and embracing empathy for all of us to encounter in here. Just as I was inspired to pursue the path of entertainment art from learning about the behind-the-scenes aspects, I think we too can be inspired to want to be closer to Amida Buddha when we sincerely, deeply hear Buddha's behind-the-scenes activity that is embracing all of us, always, through wisdom and compassion. This is what I think it means to aspire to go to the Pure Land. Another point that I hope that my story would help clarify is that of being accepted as we are on this path. In my story, if I wanted to continue on the career path of animation, I would have to develop special skills that I was not necessarily good at doing, right? I would have had to draw in someone else's style all the time. I was not allowed to be who I was, express myself who I am through my art. In addition, I would have had to develop a level of patience and endurance that I would probably never have been able to attain. However, in live action, I was invited and encouraged to draw in my style, to just be myself and cultivate that. So similarly, on a sagely path in Buddhism, we may be required to do difficult practices that we cannot accomplish. However, on this true and real Pure Land path, each of us is already accepted as we are. The Pure Land accepts and invites each of us as we are. The Pure Land is not asking us to change to someone or something or do something that we cannot do, right? We are not being asked to be someone else. We are not being asked to act like someone else. We only need to aspire to leave this world and to go to Amida Buddha's realm. We only need to want to go. So once we are inspired to become closer to Amida Buddha, to aspire to go to the Pure Land, the trajectory of our life path in this world naturally turns towards the Pure Land. And naturally, we wish to express our indebtedness to Amida Buddha for establishing the vow, for establishing the Pure Land, and becoming Namo Amida Butsu. And all of this was done for the benefit of me and my life. We express this indebtedness by responding to the virtues of Amida Buddha and the Pure Land through reciting Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. And we also earnestly continue to listen to the pure virtues and the behind-the-scenes activity of Amida Buddha that is constantly engaged in reaching us, specifically me. It's calling to me from Buddha's realm, as the form Namo Amida Butsu. So, as I conclude, I hope that as we continue, through our own lives on this Nembutsu path, we can remember that Amida Buddha is not separate from the Pure Land, and the Pure Land is not separate from Amida Buddha. Both are equally important to remember, as they are the source of the activity, the wisdom and compassion that is constantly sharing Namo Amida Butsu with each and every one of us. Namo Amida Butsu is true, it is genuine, it is immeasurable, it is unobstructed wisdom and empathy that is constantly engaged in pulling us out of this realm of the three poisons and suffering. And it is pulling us towards the true and real realm of purity and joy, profoundly wishing for us to hear its voiceless voice and become inspired and to go to the Pure Land. For the Buddha to do this is the working of the vow in motion, the vow in action. This activity of the vow is the power of Amida Buddha, the power of other, or we call other power. And so other power is none other than Amida Buddha's activity. This is Namo Amida Butsu. This is the power of light and life radiating from the Pure Land, enveloping each and every one of us as we are, including myself. So let us all continue to do our best to keep Namo Amida Butsu, Buddha's wisdom and compassion, central and fundamental to our lives. And always remember that this activity comes to us from the true and real realm, which we call Amida Buddha's Pure Land. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining today to listen to this, to listen to Dharma with us here. And I would now like to close by reading a letter by Master Renyo. Lay people in the latter age who lack wisdom should deeply rely on Amida Buddha with singleness of heart, entrusting themselves to the Buddha single-mindedly and unwaveringly for their emancipation, without turning their thoughts to other matters. However deep and heavy their evil karma may be, Amida Tathagata unfailingly saves them. This is the essence of the 18th vow that assures our birth in the Pure Land through the Nembutsu. Once our heart is thus settled, we should say the Nembutsu, whether awake or asleep, for as long as we live. Humbly and respectfully. Mandai muchi no zaike shiju no nanyo taran tomogara wa kokoro itotsu ni shite amida Buddha fukaku tanomi mairasete さらに世の方へ心を振らず、一心日光にぶ助けたまえともさん、主上は。たとえ在後は人獣なりとも、必ず皆如来は救い、ましますべし。これすなわち第18の念仏の上の誓願の心なり。核のごとく賢者しての上には寝ても覚めても命のあらん限りは。称名念仏すべきものなり。アナカシコ、アナカシコ。Namandabts, namandabts, 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 namandabts.
Thank you, Reverend Umezu, for your Dharma message this morning. We will now have the reading of Ryogemon.
Please join me with hands together as we read Ryogemon, words of understanding of our tradition. We rely upon Amida Buddha with our whole heart for the enlightenment in the life to come, abstaining from all sundry practices and teachings, and giving up the trust in our imperfect view. There is no doubt that the assurance of enlightenment comes at the very moment we entrust and we recite the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, in joy and gratitude for the Buddha's compassion. We also acknowledge gratefully the benign benevolence of our founder and succeeding masters who have led us to live in this profound teaching, and we do now endeavor to follow throughout our lives the way laid down for us. Ryoge Shutsugon. Moro moro no zogyo zashu jiriki no kokoro o furistete. Isshin ni Amida Nyorai, warera ga kondo no ichidaiji no gosho. On tasuke sorae to tanomi moshite soro. Tanomu ichinen no toki, ojo ichijo on tasuke jijo tozonji. この上の称名はご恩報者と存じ、喜び申し候。この恩断り、弔問申し分け候こと、ご解散承認ご出世のご恩、次第相乗の前時式の朝からざるご関係のご恩と、ありがたく存じ候。この上は定めを課せられる恩をきて、一号限り守り申すべく候。ナマンダプスナマンダプナマンダプスナマンダプナマンダプスナマンダプナマンダプスナマンダプナマンダプナマンダプナマンダプナマンダプナマンダプ。
Okay, so now for announcements. First of all, the last class of Buddhism Beyond Mindfulness, which would have been on June the 24th, has been canceled. Next, on Wednesdays from 7 to 8 p.m. via Zoom, Reverend Takata leads a session, a class, What is the Jodo Shinshu Teaching? The next one is on June the 14th, and the final one will be the June 28th. Now today, we will be, on June the 15th, Reverend Mas Kodani has an in-person only session on Thursday from 11 to 12:30, and that will be the last session for his class. Next, Dharma Cafe, we will be having our Dharma Cafe today. It will be from 12 to 2 o'clock today out in the front of our temple. Then every third Friday of the month we have bingo at the temple. That starts at 7 o'clock. We will be serving light snacks. We have free parking. And as always, the more people, the bigger the prize. Now the big fundraiser for 80 plus is our yard sale. That's coming up this coming Saturday from 9 to 3. And we have a lot of items for the yard sale. Now, we are not accepting any more donations. That's it. So please come. Also, I wanted to mention that on that day, we will have relaxed parking. What that means is normally in this neighborhood, you have to have a permit. But on that day, you can park between Colby, Purdue, and from LaGrange to Missouri, and anywhere in between. So please just keep that in mind. We will have, they should provide plenty of parking for that day. Then, of course, Obon, July 22 and 23 will be our Obon. This will be the old Obon like we used to know. Back 2019 was the last one. So please tell your friends about it. We have posters if you want to help distribute posters. You can see Galen or myself after service, anytime after that, and help us distribute and mention our Obon. And let's see, next Sunday from 10 o'clock, we will be having our Father's Day / graduation service. So please come to that if you can. With that, that concludes our service for today. Thank you again for joining us. We will be having a Dharma reflection session right after service, so please give us about 5 minutes to set up. And then, as I mentioned, after that, from 12 to 2 o'clock, we will be having Dharma Cafe. So, Sensei?
Thank you for coming. Please offer incense.